DLC.
It feels like we're burying.
Yes, let's get
We're burying
to
a little bit of a.
Alan Wake 2. Christian, you not only have played it, you have become it. Look at you. You are fully Alan Waked. What, can we say woke? Nobody's using that term, right? So you're Alan Woke.
I woke up as Alan Wake.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yes. Tell me what you think of Alan Wake 2 as I think Remedy super fan at this point. I think you are to Remedy as what I am to Larian. I don't know. What do we think? You are a Remedy super fan.
So I want to start by saying we have partnered with NVIDIA for Alan Wake 2. We are going to be doing some very cool bonus content coming up here later this week with folks from NVIDIA talking about the tech. If you are not a patron, we're going to be posting it there first. We're going to be getting audience questions to make that conversation better and stuff that you all want to talk about with DLSS 3.5 and the path tracing and reflex and all of the cool tech that is in the PC version of this game. So feel free to discredit my opinions as someone who planned to be Alan Wake 6 months ago for Halloween and hasn't shut up talking about Control. If you want to discount my opinions because we've partnered with NVIDIA for coverage of this game, I understand. That's fine. I will not hold it against you. But that is important for me to say at the outset. We were also provided codes for this game and blah, blah, blah. All that stuff, all of those disclosures. With those out of the way, I think, and God, I'm glad I think this because I would feel really bad crapping on this game dressed the way I am.
Alan Wake is the most goofy looking character of all time.
Like just absolute. I think Alan Wake 2 is one of the finest interactive experiences ever created. I think it is a triumph of a video game, which I know I can't make fetch happen in terms of a new term, but I really would love to call video games interactives or something else that elevates the platform a little bit. I think gaming it has a whole thing. But I think it truly represents what a video game can be by being an interactive story, an interactive narrative. I think it elevates what games are and why I find them so special over watching something on Netflix or going to the movies. And I love film. I love TV. I love that type of media experience. But I think I talked about it a lot on the Last of Us podcast, and I'm sure on this show over the years as well, but how much I enjoy what interactivity brings to a story, what making me as Snake crawl through that radioactive tunnel does to elevate that experience, and what making me choose to open the door in Resident Evil brings to that horror experience. I can't just yell like, "Don't open it, Claire, don't open it." Like I have to do it as that character, right? And I think so much of that is shown in Alan Wake 2 and the way that Remedy is able to tell this story cross-media all within a game. Their use of live action, not in a cheesy, what were those, like Night
Full
Switch?
motion video.
Yeah, like full motion video style game, not Night Switch, whatever that old Sega CD game was, where it's like we used to see FMV and it was like very tongue in cheek and like, oh, this is not performed well. This is clearly video game people trying to make a movie. Alan Wake 2 isn't that. I think it's super unique in how it blends the real world stuff overlaid onto the graphics and then on top of full cutting to transitions of just real actors and then back into the game. And the sound design is exquisite, creating things that are very real, but things that couldn't exist in the real world and blending them together and doing it all in service of this. The term Sam Lake has used a lot in describing this story is, this hard-boiled detective story, which if you're not familiar with that, it's very much this Twin Peaks and before that too, kind of the serial style of detective drama where, people talk in a certain way and it's intentional and it's not in on the joke, but it's very self-aware in terms of what it's doing and how it's doing it. And there are so many moments in Alan Wake 2 that lean into that, but again, not in a cheesy way, just in a way that I think is showing reverence and understanding and I would argue also elevating that genre. There's moments where Saga and Alex Casey, who's another detective in the story, they're center framed and they sit there with their coffee cups and they pull them up in time, sip the exact same way, bring them down and over as they have this wood paneled background behind them. And it's stuff that you see in this genre over and over and over again. And I think it signals to the player what type of story this is going to be, and then while also continues to constantly change and challenge your expectations. There's stuff in this game, I have my little notes here, that are just truly mind-blowing. And I think part of it is I'm gonna get his name right because
Alan Wake is consulting his notebook.
It's been changed somehow.
All the pages. Why are all the pages torn out and scattered all around the world?
Why are they crossed out? James McCaffrey is the voice of Alex Casey, and Sam Lake is the face and mocap of Alex Casey.
It's very disturbing to be walking around with Max Payne as your partner.
But and so James McCaffrey is Max Payne's voice, and Sam Lake is Max Payne's character model, and now they're playing Alex Casey, who before in Alan Wake was the fictional detective in the Alan Wake stories, who also still exists in Alan Wake 2 as a fictional detective that current actual FBI detective Alex Casey is aware of, that there's a detective that he has the same name as, but now this is being played and voiced by the same people who played Max Payne, and very much in a way that is, the leather jacket and the tie when you're in the dark place of the detective version of Alex Casey. And so it's doing all of this stuff where I'll keep referencing Twin Peaks over and over again because I think it is the pop culture touchstone that most people will be familiar with that does what Alan Wake 2 is doing throughout.
Or maybe True Detective might be a little more recent.
Yeah, and True Detective certainly has some of that as well. And that's not even talking about the visuals of this game. I think Alan Wake 2 is the most visually impressive video game I've played to date. What it's doing, and I'm playing on PC on a beefy GP. I've heard the PlayStation 5 version is also incredible. I haven't heard as much about Xbox. I think those codes went out a little later. Just absolutely stunning. Its use of light and the path tracing and the stuff that we'll hopefully get into all the nitty-gritty of when we do that bonus content later this week. But is absolutely jaw-dropping. There's a moment where you have a live action scene projected onto a wall in an environment that you're able to walk through and interact, and you can see that as you would if you've ever stood up in front of a projector, bend and warp in real time and map over your character as it cuts through, and you can flash your flashlight in it and interfere with it. All of the beautiful graphical touches throughout this game, I think, really pull you into the world, and it's constantly challenging your expectation of what the world is. The stuff that I talked about in my preview of not understanding necessarily what's happening, I think has borne true throughout the game, where it's keeping you, the player, on your toes. Not in terms of how do I walk? Or not in terms of what Super Mario Wonder does, where all of a sudden it's body horror and you're 10 feet tall and so are the Koopas. But in terms of the narrative and wondering if you can believe what you're being told. When every narrator is an unreliable narrator, the mental gymnastics the game is asking you, the player, to do, I think not since Eternal Darkness, was it 20 years ago, has there been a game that has challenged me, the player, in terms of what reality is. Because there's stuff in the real world as Saga that it can't be real. The way people are interacting and talking with each other. And then as the game continues to peel back the onion as to what may or may not be happening, all of that stuff is reinforced and those earlier feelings are reinforced. I think it is a triumph, an absolute triumph. I have not rolled credits on it yet. I got my code late, which is fine, neither here nor there. And we're recording this episode early. I'm very close to the credits in the game, it feels like, but because of those two things, I'm not quite there. But even without that, I can unequivocally say this is one of the finest interactive media experiences I've ever had. I just want to live in the world. I just want to be there. Not really, because I'd be dead, let's be honest. But I just want to have it surround me. It's a game where I spend more time walking than running. I think I talked about that with some of the Arkham games before, where it wants you to experience the world. It wants you to be a part of it. And then to Will's point of the PS5 controller, I am playing on PC but wired with my PS5 controller because the DualSense is an incredible controller, and they've implemented it on the PC version, so you feel the rumble of the rain. The different weapons have
Oh
different
wow!
haptics.
So you get DualSense on the PC.
Yeah, and it's absolutely phenomenal. But I will be praising this game again, Jeff. I'm sorry if I've already talked too long. I will continue to talk
No,
about this
not at all.
game. I think it is an absolute tour de force, and if you are at all interested in it and what type of genre this game is, if you think it might be for you, I cannot recommend it highly enough. And it runs really well, or has been running really well for me on PC. I've heard the console versions run well, which is awesome because I loved Control, but I know a lot of folks struggled with that on base PS4s when it came out. And it seems like Remedy has created this next gen, pushing graphics forward, but in a way that is still approachable and manageable on console. I feel like it's a must play. In a year of every single game is a must play, add this to the list.
Yeah.
Put it on the backlog. I
mean, I
am
think
blown away.